Welcome to She Considers a Field podcast with coach, encourager, and fellow entrepreneur and homeschooling mama of four, Anna McLaughlin. As a homeschooling entrepreneur, you are uniquely positioned to impact the kingdom of God both deep through your investment in your children and wide through your business. And yet guilt, frustration, and overwhelm can hold you back from all that God has for you. Come with me on a journey to walk in deeper peace, purpose, and joy, because God has given you a legacy to build, and I'm here to help you enjoy the ride. Hello and welcome. I'm so glad you are here. Okay, so in your world, it's March. In my world, it is mid-February, and the first 3 episodes of our podcast have launched. And let me just tell you guys, there's nothing like building a thing and then sending it out and starting to get feedback. It is so exciting to get to hear the things you guys have been saying, the encouragement you've offered. I just want to thank you so much. If you're still listening and you started listening in the beginning, you get a gold star. Okay. I don't know how to give you a gold star, but I am just virtually sending you a gold star right now. Thank you so much. Thank you for being part of this conversation. Please let me know if there are things that you want to hear us talk about on here. Hear me talk about. I will bring on guests eventually. I cannot wait. It's going to be so much fun. I know so many incredible people who have giftings that I can't even touch. But in the meantime, we're going to start off the conversation here, just us girls, and we're going to talk through all of the challenges that we encounter as homeschooling entrepreneur moms. So we're going to kick this thing off with prayer because we need it, right? We need it. Lord, thank you. Thank you that you're here, that you love us. Thank you that you know us fully. We are fully known by you. You tell us that in 1 Corinthians 13. We are fully known by you. Better than we know ourselves, you know us. And I just ask that you would speak to each heart today, that this would be time well spent, that you would serve your daughters through this time and through this podcast, that you would guard my mouth from saying anything that does not edify you and uplift the body of Christ, and that you would use this time to encourage each of us in our unique callings for our unique set of circumstances. Thank you so much, Lord. Amen. Okay. So I told you guys I had a strategic side. I've got the coaching mindset, I've got the Jesus healed me deeply, like nurturing and safe space grace side, and then I've got the strategic lawyer brain. We are going to put that on and we are going to talk today about something you might want to run away from, but don't run away from it. Office hours. Okay? If you work anything like I have worked over the years, like my natural bent would have me work, I told you guys, I'm pretty sure I have an ADHD brain. That's okay. There's superpowers to it too. I really have fought over the years the idea of there being set work time, but it gives great gifts. So we are going to talk about today what it looks like to put your work in a container and why it's important. Okay. So the first thing that I want to offer to you guys is um, we need to kind of settle the thing about, do I need office hours? For some of you guys, life is working beautifully the way that you're doing it. Some of you guys have office hours already. It's settled. It's good. We're actually going to talk about you too, because we want to make sure that you're doing quality stuff in your office hours. It's always good to take a quick inventory. How's this going? I'm sitting down. I used to sit down for hours a day. Hours. But I was not targeted in my approach, and so I wasted so much time and created so much stress. My business invaded every corner of my life, okay? About, let's see, 3 years ago now, our youngest decided it would be really fun to create an ocean in the bathroom. In 4 minutes, water had gone everywhere on the top floor and had started literally pouring through into our garage down below. That's how my office hours were. That's how my work time was. It flowed everywhere. It invaded every little space, okay? So I get it. I know that of which I speak. Okay? So, we need to decide, do I need office hours? And so, as homeschooling entrepreneur mamas, I'm just going to acknowledge you wear many hats, and those hats have wide brims that expand over all kinds of space and time, right? They take up a lot of room. Your homeschool could go until 5 o'clock in the evening. Your work time could start at 8 o'clock in the morning. There could be absolutely no bounds between the two. Raise your hand right now. Own it. If you have been sitting next to your children trying to help them with math And all of a sudden you get a text notification and you're like, "Oh, a customer. Oh, I'll just answer this question real quick." By the time you emerge, your kids have drifted off. There is no schoolwork to be seen. There are no children to be seen. They're out playing outside and now you got to wrangle them back in. Tell me I don't know you. I know you because I am you. Okay. This is the way it rolls, right? We get excited. We get a dopamine hit when we hear from somebody that's interested in making a purchase or booking a call with us, wants a sampling of our work, whatever it is. But when we do that, here's the cost. We start to feel stressed and overloaded because the things that we're working on are kind of smashing into each other, are making like the work time is making the school time harder, the school time is making the work time harder. And in that bouncing between two things, y'all, we may think we can, we actually cannot multitask. Our brain cannot be settled and focused on two things at the same time. So you're actually creating a sense of unrest and disorganization in your mind by jittering between 2 things in a very short amount of time. Whereas instead, if you said, "Okay, this is where my work time lives," then when you have a breath, when you have a gap, you can actually breathe. When the kids go grab a bathroom break or grab a snack, you can actually sit and listen to the birds, breathe, drink a cup of coffee, make some tea, grab a blanket, maybe pick up a book and read a few pages. We'll talk about reading one of these days because that's another of my favorite conversations. But you when you create space in your life where there's not anything pressing on you, when you've just decided, "I'm not working until 2 PM today. I'm not working until 6 o'clock at night." That creates an openness in your life that actually starts to bring that anxiety level down, okay? There was a great reel I saw the other day. Emily Vondi is an Instagram influencer that I just think is the cutest. As she would say, she's a real hoot, okay? She's kind of a mom, love your season, love your family, love your body kind of, um, you know, advocate. And she did a reel about how she walked into a room and all three of her little girls were napping. And she went into this state of literally like, "Oh, I could do laundry right now. I could do a grocery list. I could watch the next episode of whatever. I could do this, I could do that." And then she went into this state of paralysis, and there was, like, her dressed up as a fairy going, "Oh, no, like, she's frozen. Don't worry, she'll come back," right? We can get overloaded when there's too many options, so we need to decide ahead of time where our big rocks go, okay? So, now, how are we gonna do this? The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to take an inventory of where we are today. We're gonna look at when am I actually working? When we're doing these little one-off, just respond to this text real quick, I'll just respond to this message real quick, I'll just handle this thing really quickly, we actually feel like we're working a lot more hours than we actually are. And then when we truly do an inventory, it might be 30 minutes throughout the day or an hour throughout the day, but it feels like we're working all day long because we've interjected 2 minutes, 4 minutes, 3 minutes here and there, such that the day feels filled with work. Okay? Whereas if we just sat down and hammered the thing out, it literally we could have done the same thing in less time, and it really wasn't that much time either, okay? That was one of the things that I found when I was working is, when I was first starting my business, is that I was putting my business in every single empty pocket, and so it felt like I was constantly working, but I was not working with focus, okay? So we're going to really narrow in on when we are working and how much we are working. Okay. So we're taking an inventory. Then we're going to make a decision. Is this working? Do I like this? You might decide, you know what? I really do. I really do. I'm in a season where I'm already overloaded. This isn't really going to serve me to try to find a better system right now. I'm just going to go all in on this. But I'm going to invite you, if you are not completely locked in on that, to get really curious and just say, could there be a way to work better? Could there be a way that would serve our family better? If you're experiencing any kind of stress around your work time, do this exercise and get really, really curious. I like to say curiosity is a superpower. How could it look different? How could I actually enjoy this process of investing in my business? Enjoy this process of homeschooling my children, enjoy this process of raising my family, enjoy this process of making my home more. And then once we've asked that question, we've gotten really, really curious. Okay, how could it look different? Then we're going to take a step even further back. And then once we've been in that curiosity place, then we're going to move into actually making a decision. We're going to call our shot. For us, for example, I've pretty much almost always worked done school with the kids during the morning time, and then worked in the afternoon during nap time initially, and now we've set up a structure where my husband's actually home in the afternoons. So he takes the kids and I have a few hours of work time in the afternoons, okay? And if that sounds like a luxury for you guys, let me just tell you it is. And I fully recognize that it is, but it is an intentional luxury. It is a life that we have built by design over the months and years, okay? We are like 10 years into this thing now. And it can happen far more quickly than we think. Like there's this quote, I wish I knew where it came from. I think Tony Robbins said, People highly overestimate what they can accomplish in 1 year and highly underestimate what they can accomplish in 5 years." Okay. What does that mean? That means basically we think we're going to be able to change this whole thing in a year, but then we get discouraged and we can stop really going all in on the thing. And like we've talked about in the past, the things of God, the beautiful things that he gives to us to steward and hold, they grow exponentially, not linearly. So what Tony Robbins says is, okay, you think you'll be at X point after a year, but you're shooting too high. You can't change that much in a year, but you can change profoundly in 5 years because your small, consistent actions start to kick up and compound in powerful ways. Okay. So we can make these changes. If that's something where you're like, oh, it'd be so amazing to have him home in the afternoons, listen, book an exploratory coaching call with me, okay? We can have this conversation about how can you craft the life that you feel called to live, okay? It's possible and it's okay. It's okay to dream big like that because here's the deal. When you've built a life that you love, you're of greater impact to the kingdom. And that doesn't mean it's going to be easy. It's going to be soul stretching, hard work, but then you get to turn around and give to other people what the Lord has given you. And I'm not a prosperity girl. You don't get to name it and claim it, but you do get to direct your steps under the Lord's will and direction and say, okay, I really want this thing. Is this in alignment with what you're inviting me into? And then you start walking. And if there's tons of roadblocks and stuff like that, and you've prayed over it and you've sought spiritual guidance, it's like, okay, maybe not right now, but that doesn't mean that He doesn't want beautiful, good things for you. Okay. All right. So so you call your shot. You say, "Okay, here's the season we're in. This is what's gonna work." There were times where I woke up at 5:30 in the morning and worked. There were times where I worked after the kids were asleep. We've moved it around. I call this, you guys, this is your resistance training season, okay? If you've got a lot of small people, like, it just felt like we were always having another baby, right? For a little while there, by the time I got my body back, by the time I started to feel better, we were pregnant again. And because we had 4 kids in 6 years. And so there were seasons where as soon as we caught a rhythm, something would change. Somebody would drop a nap, we'd add another kid, somebody would end up sick, somebody would enter into school who hadn't been in school before, behavior differences, sibling interactions, all of that stuff, right? It's all real. Resistance training is the willingness to get up and try again, right? And when I say resistance training, think of it like exercise where you are, you're choosing to train at high altitudes, you're choosing to train in the heat of the day, you're choosing to run with weights on your back, that type of thing. This is what we're choosing to do as mothers who homeschool. We are choosing to slog through the mud because we can't just say, "Oh, yeah, I'll just there's nobody ever in the house, so I can work anytime, so I guess I'll work from 10 to 4." No, you can't we can't do that, right? Because it's not that straightforward. But that's okay. We can still set our sights and say, "This is the goal, this is the objective," and then, it's gonna change. Maybe almost every day. That's okay. As a homeschooling entrepreneur mama, you are uniquely positioned to impact the kingdom of God both deep and wide. Isn't it time you partnered with a coach to help you close the gap between where you are and where you feel God calling you to go? As a veteran homeschool mama and seasoned entrepreneur and investor myself, I understand the unique challenges you face. And as a life coach, former lawyer, and woman of faith, I offer a unique combination of strategy, mindset, and spirit led discernment to help you identify your next steps. Click the link in the show notes now to schedule a free exploratory call. I would love to partner with you in taking your business and homeschool journey to the next level. We've taken an inventory. We've gotten curious because something's a little out of order, and we've set our sights and said, okay, here is when I'm going to work. Okay. Next step is to get real clear. Well, actually, we're going to take a little detour. The next two steps that you're going to take are you're going to talk to your husband about this plan and you're going to talk to your kids about this plan. But I want to take you on a detour really quickly. that's going to make these conversations far more powerful and make your work time far more powerful. Because before you go all in on when you will be working, you've got to make sure you have clarity on why you are working, and you've got to take a look at how you are working to see if it matches your why. Here's what I mean by that. Why are you working? We talked in our Start with Why episode that it not simply be about the Gucci bag or even big significant things like paying off loans or bringing your husband home or changing your financial future. Like those are big things, but they're still things. What are you endeavoring to build? What is your vision for your family? What is your vision for your circle of influence? Okay. When you sit down to work, what are you creating? I love how the Bible talks about the word became flesh. When it talks about Christ in John 1, the word became flesh and he dwelt among us. We also inflesh things because God has infused in us the ability to create. So, what are you creating? What are you infleshing when you sit down to work? Okay. And is the work that you're doing the most effective way to bring that to pass? And it's not like you're going to one day wake up and go, oh, I was doing X and now I'm going to do Y and now everything is great. We've talked many times in the past. You even heard me sing on one of the earlier episodes that what God does in the natural, he also is doing in the spiritual. The natural is actually a picture that we can grab hold of what's happening in the spiritual. And he tells us that objects in motion tend to stay in motion, whereas objects in rest tend to stay at rest. Objects at rest tend to stay at rest. That's Newton's first law of motion. Okay. I never thought when I started this podcast how much I would talk about the things that we've learned in homeschool, but that's kind of a beautiful picture of what this is all about, right? That we actually bring in our homeschool community, we talk about how it's two generations, at least two generations are being educated, and education is being redeemed for the parents as we educate our children. And how true that has been for me, moving out of my type A, go to the best schools, get the best grades, get the best degree, get the accolades, lawyer personality, and moving into this posture of deeper wonder of how beautiful the world is, right? And how beautiful the Lord is as reflected in all that he's created. Okay, so our job coming back. So I said objects that in motion tend to stay in motion, objects at rest tend to remain at rest. Okay. Our job is to move our feet. Get up every day and do the work that we know to do. And then be willing, open, and curious to see what he has for us beyond that. So, if when you sit down, your office hours look anything like mine did about 7, 8, 9 years ago, first of all, let me just commend coaching to you. Book an exploratory call with me. I know I said that already. Book an exploratory call with me. It's free. In theory, it's 30 minutes. I was telling a friend of mine today, I don't think I've ever had a 30-minute call in my life. Never. Like, give me an hour. Okay, so it might go a little long, but we will actually coach around an issue, and you can kind of get a feel for what it would look like to work with me more long term, because changes happen over time. We need nudges. We need circling back. We need accountability, okay? If you feel any sort of, and so I said if you work like I used to work, I should probably describe how I used to work. I would sit down and slog away for untold hours at things that weren't really important, okay? I would feel discouraged, I would feel frustrated, I would feel heavily burdened and stressed. And I look at my work now, I love what I do now. Over the years, I've given myself increasing amounts of permission to not do the things that I'm not highly gifted at, either by delegating them out or by simply letting them go, so that I can walk in my gifting more and more and more, believing that that is where I will be most effective. That doesn't mean I don't do hard things. So I try to be mindful of my gifts. Okay. I try to recognize that, the Bible talks about some are made to be encouragers and some to be exhorters. Those are the same thing. Some are called to be encouragers. Some are called to be pastors. Some are called to do ministry of helps. Okay. Prophecy, all of that. What are you great at? And then do that as much as possible. and give other people room to shine in their own area of excellence. Okay? Because the more you know yourself, the more you know your giftings, and the more you give yourself permission to walk in them, the more effective you will be in the kingdom of God, which is the point. That is the point. Let's bring the kingdom of God to earth as it is in heaven. All right? God actually wants you to love the work that you do. That doesn't mean you don't have to eat your vegetables sometimes. Like, I mean, we've worked doing Postmates jobs. Yeah, I was a lawyer for many years and it was not my favorite gifting, right? But I learned a lot. I learned a lot about my bent, what I liked about it and what I did not like about it and why, right? And so we don't want to be entitled, but at the same time, this is a place where we get open and curious and say, okay, what do I actually have to do here? Okay? May we not get caught up in any sort of how to's. Okay? So for any of you guys that are in direct sales, listen, there can be a lot of culture in the direct sales community where you'll look around and you'll see, okay, well, this is how they're doing it. And maybe I should do this. And maybe I should do this. And maybe I should do this. And we can pile and I'm sure this is true in other industries. The direct sales industry is just an industry I know pretty well. And so, whenever you're in kind of a communal, like there's a tribe to it. Okay. Direct sales is one. I'm sure it shows up in anything where there's kind of like a lot of gathering, like in real estate and things like that. Then you can start collecting burdens without even realizing. You're collecting strategies, right? Oh, she does it this way and it works for her. She does it this way and it works for her. She does it this way and it works for her. And all of a sudden you're doing 10 different things that everybody swears are the silver bullet. Why are they the silver bullet? Because it matches their unique bent. It works because they bought into it and they went all in on it. Guess what? You can do it totally different and it can still work. For example, for me, anything that involves me sitting down and crafting something is really challenging in this season of my life. If you want me to write you an email, oh man, please, no. Anything that's like gathering data and like grabbing clips of things and images and scheduling posts, no. I'm terrible at that stuff. I don't like it. It takes too long. It's ticky tacky. Like, no. So, more and more as my business grew and as I grew as CEO of my little microcosm, I started either scrapping that stuff altogether or outsourcing it to other people. And we'll talk about hiring someone in the future because that's something I'm a big, huge fan of is really getting support so that you can be operating in your unique excellence. Okay. So take an inventory of your energy as you're working. What do you enjoy? For me, live video. Like y'all coming on here and talking to you guys, I'm golden. As long as I can carve out the actual space to do it, check the box. I'm in my element. Okay. Live video on Facebook. I do a every Monday. See if I can get these words out. Every Monday at 3 p.m. in my Facebook group, She Considers a Field, I do a live video. Why? Because I'm comfortable on live video. That's me. It's easy for me to talk out loud. I was trained as a lawyer. I love communicating with people. I love how easy live video is. There's no opportunity to edit it later. It's just that there it is. I did it. Whether it was good or bad, it's done. Okay. So look for opportunities for you to be in your gifting. Okay. Why are you working? And then how are you working? Okay. I think I converged those things together. So let me make sure I've teased them out well enough for you. Why am I working? This is the vision of what I'm creating. Okay. This is that whole like casting a vision out into the future and saying, this is what I believe the Lord is calling me to bring to earth as it is in heaven. Okay. And that may sound a little bit ethereal. We talked about it more specifically in more detail in the why episode, which I believe it was like a couple episodes ago. So you can get 1 or 2 episodes ago. So you can go back and listen to that. I'll make sure it's linked in the show notes. Okay. And then how am I working? To what degree is my energy being drained? To what degree am I in my element? In my like, yes, this is so much fun. This is the thing I love to do. And it can just be a matter of getting really curious about it. When you work for yourself, you actually do have a lot of autonomy around how you show up in your business. Do not believe the lie that it has to follow a certain formula. You are in Christ. And if he has made you with a certain bent, then it might just maybe be possible that you can work from that bent. I almost couldn't say that word. From that bent and have it be very effective. That doesn't mean the money's gonna be rolling in right now. He might call you to be faithful in little before he sets you over more. That's okay. Okay. So the thing to look at right now is, to what degree am I sitting there going, I love this. I love what I'm doing. Okay. Now here's the tricky part. We don't like to let things go. We're worried that we're going to let somebody down. We're worried that we're going to hurt their feelings. We're worried that they're going to kind of get up in their business and be like, I can't believe you're not doing that for your team. I can't believe you're not serving your customers in that way. Listen, it's not theirs. You're co creating something with the Father, and your responsibility is to Him first, then to your husband, then to your children. Okay? We have not had an episode just about hierarchy of covenants, but oh, we are going to have it because it is one of my favorite tools that the Lord has given me in decision making. I think I've talked about it maybe, but I cannot remember. So I'm just going to real quick tell you what I'm talking about. Hierarchy of covenants says, yes, I have talked about this, says that we need to keep proper ordered. God comes first. He is your first order covenant. You entered into a covenant of marriage. So if you're married, that is your second order covenant. And I've said the caveat, like abuse is a different deal. That requires a counselor. Okay. But we're just assuming good old happy marriage, happy-ish marriage. We can get it happier too. We'll talk about that too. Um, Children, third. You entered into a covenant with your children, I believe, through baptism. That baptism is a covenant ceremony. That's my personal faith conviction. But in any event, they're real significant. They came from your body. You are the only, or they came through adoption, right? You are their mother. You are their mother, and you're the only mother that they have, right? And so that's the 1, 2, 3. Those are givens, okay? So when those little voices come in and say, "You can't do it that way." Lower order covenant. They do not have the right to interject their opinions into what you feel called to do before the Lord, especially if it's going to make for a more joyful work life, which is going to translate directly into income for your family over the long run and a happier wife and mama in the short term, which you know is going to bless your husband and your children. So we're just going to settle that thing right now. Okay. So, how are you going to work? As much as possible, you're going to do the things that you love, that you are uniquely gifted at. If you don't know what they are, again, this is something I can help you with in coaching. This is something that we can tussle with a little bit in the Facebook group and by Messenger and things like that. You're welcome to start a conversation with me there, but nothing beats in depth coaching because you really unpack identity, you unpack your story, you unpack what's got you stuck, what's kind of holding you back from stepping forward. Okay. So, we're going to look at why and when and how we're working. Really, we looked at when first, and then we're going to look at why and how we're working. We're going to shift things. And then we're going to go to our husbands and we're going to say, listen, here's the vision that I see. Here's what I think this business could be. This is why I'm working. Our guys actually need to hear this because for some women, work is an outlet. If not a lot of money is coming in right now, your husband might just think this is a hobby. Okay? Let me just say that that's not wrong of them. They're not wrong if you have not communicated with them what this really is. And so if you have not yet set the table with them or with him, or it's time for an update, take some time, get eyeball to eyeball and say, listen, I've really been thinking about this business that I've taken on. I've really been thinking about this thing that I started. My husband said to me, he was like, I was going to be real excited if you brought in like $100 a month, right? Like that was his vision. So when I was like, no, here's what I want to do. I really want to create a legacy. I really want to help other women make a lot of money. I really want to help just like shift our family's financial future and really sow into the generations and do big crazy things. Like, wouldn't it be fun to pay somebody's student loans off? Like, just wouldn't that be fun? We're not there yet, but I still see it, right? So cool. And so we need to sit down and we need to cast that vision before our husbands and say, here's what I think I'm called to create. What do you think about that? And then you say, here's what that would mean for you, though. I would need an hour before bedtime. Or I need an hour, or I need 3 hours, or I need 2 hours, whatever it is. And I think it would fit really well at this point in our day, but how does that land for you? Back in the day, my husband hated brushing teeth. It was just like monkeys climbing everywhere. Like, I don't know what it was, but we could not catch rhythm around brushing our teeth. So for him, that was really important of like, if I don't have to do that, I would be so happy. And we had kids who had trouble falling asleep, so he would, like, lay down with them. It was a whole big routine. He hates reading stories. My children do not like him reading stories. Daddy skips parts. He can't read, right? They would rather have big sister read than dad. Tell me if you're like our family on that one. I love to read stories. I don't mind doing teeth, face, and hair. And so we got really clear on what parts of the day he really wanted me. He really wanted me available. That didn't mean he always got it, but we really tried to make that a priority. So I pushed a lot of my calls and things later in the evening so that I was able to help with that stuff first. Okay. So talk to him and just make it an open conversation. I really feel like I need X amount of time to work a day, X number of days a week. And I'd like it to fit in at a time where I could really just focus and get the thing done and then come back and be with you guys. Here's what I think that would create and sell them on it, right? If you're in sales, practice with your family. Sell your husband on it. Here's what it would look like. Here's what I think it would improve in our lives. He's noticed you're on the phone a lot, right? He is not blind. He's just patient. Okay? So get really, really clear with him. Here's what I think it would look like, and here's why I think this matters for us. Here's what I think it could give us in the long term. Are you in? Are you up for this journey? And we'll reevaluate in 6 months. We'll see how it's going. I wanna hear your feedback if it's not going well. The time to make that decision is not when a kid is screaming, okay? That's not the moment. Just table it, revisit it. So once he's on board, then you pull in the kids. And I'll just say one more caveat about the husband thing. If your relationship isn't in a place to have this conversation, then it does become a little bit more of a creative work of like, okay, how can I tuck time in so that I'm available at the times that he needs me to be? Okay? So I'm just gonna acknowledge sometimes that's a thing. Okay? You can't have those setting the table conversations, and you just need to really elevate and strategize and say, "Okay, what makes the most sense in our current season?" Okay, last little piece, then you tell your children. My children know why I work. They know what it gives them. They know the opportunities that we have that we would not have if I were not working. And they understand that they get access to me pretty much whenever they want, with the exception of these few hours a day. They understand that they're okay and they're taken care of, even if they don't get exactly what they want. It is okay to tell them no. It really is. Okay? Because ultimately, the more they understand the limitedness of their parents, the more they understand that God alone meets every need. Okay? Like, I had a moment with one of my kids recently where I was gonna be gone, and they were in the middle of some big feelings that they were feeling really beautifully. They were grieving, and they were grieving really well, and I was really proud of them. But they were like, "I wish you wouldn't go." And so I got really present. I gave that kid a hug. I got really close. I kind of acknowledged and affirmed, like, "I know it's really hard not to have me here. You can call me if you need me." But ultimately, I pointed them to the Lord. Right? He is with you now. He will comfort you. He will be beside you. He will love you in a way that I can't even do. We need to teach our children that ultimately we are not source. We are a very important, almost like, I don't know how to what word to use to describe it, like a representation of the Father's love and presence, but we're not it. We're not the end goal. We're just the one with skin on that gets, like, hopefully, by the grace of God, kinda close sometimes, right? I mean, I'm not sounding very positive because we know how much we sin and how much we fall, but children can't help it. When they look at us, they they interpose our character and temperaments onto God, which, of course, is terrifying as a parent, but that's just what children do. Because they need us with skin on, right? They're very rational beings. They're very literal beings in their childhood. And God knew this and he had a path forward, right? He called us to high account as parents and he called children to learn obedience well because he knew that this would translate into obedience of the Father, which is ultimately going to bring all kinds of healing and set everything to rights over time, culminating in heaven. Okay. So but I couldn't be there, and me not being able to be there, sorry, circling it back. Me not being able to be there was an opportunity for me to point her to the one who is always there, which is ultimately the goal. Okay? So so my kids know. Here's why I'm not always available to you. Here's what happens in our life. Here's what our life looks like because of that. We own a beach house. We have investment properties. We have the opportunity to have daddy home for half the day. Okay? We could have structured our family differently where he's gone all day and you're with mommy. And that would have been a totally legit way to do it, but that's just not what we chose. They appreciate the life that we've built. They see the gift in it because we take time to be intentional and say, "Look, this is what we were able to do because of the way our schedule is." We're able to play hooky on birthdays. We never work on birthdays. We just go and play and we watch movies and it's really I mean, the kids look forward to it like all throughout the months. And so we let our children know. And I let my children know there's going to be a time when the door is locked and you just can't come in. That's okay, right? Okay. So, here's where we are. We've gotten crystal clear on how we're currently working. We've gotten open and curious and we've said, okay, is this really what we want? Or do we want to try it differently? Then we've taken some time to look at why we are working and how we are working. And we've made some decisions on how to shift that going forward. And listen, I'm going to give you a challenge right now. There's been a lot in this episode. We've gone a lot of different rabbit trails. That's just kind of how I roll, right? I love parables. I love bringing in all the different little bits of wisdom that I've found over the years. Take one step forward. If nothing else, take an inventory of when you're working right now so that you can start to bring awareness. If you've already done that, you're like, okay, I'm good with my office hours. They've got a set time. Get really curious about one shift, just one shift you could make to move more in alignment with what you like doing instead of what you should and ought to do. And I'm putting should not to in fear quotes, right? Like what you think you should and ought to do that you really shouldn't and ought to do. Okay. One shift. And then if you haven't had a table setting conversation with your spouse recently about when you're working and why you're working, sit down and have it. I cannot tell you how many things get resolved between my husband and me when we just talk about our expectations and get crystal clear. If you're noticing any sort of resistance, any sort of frustration, anything like that, maybe it's time in love to just dump it out on the desk and say, here's why I thought this was a good time for me to work, but am I wrong? Is this not really a good time to work? Because I can totally work at a different time. There's options. Here's what that would look like. Give them 3 or 4 different options, see what comes of it. Okay? And I wanna hear from you if you do any of these 3 things. If you either do an inventory of when you're working, or you shift how you're working to something more in alignment with what you love and who you are, or you have a table setting conversation with your husband or your children. I wanna hear about it, okay? Tag me on social media at She Considers a Field. Come on in the She Considers a Field Facebook page and put a little like post about what you did. Whatever. I wanna hear about it, okay? Because that's super exciting to me. So that's settled the thing, right? We're gonna look at when we're working. We're gonna look at how we're working. We're gonna have a conversation with our husbands to really set the table and just say, oh, and we're we're gonna look at why we're working too. Forgot about that one. Have a conversation with our husbands to set the table, and we're gonna talk to our children. Okay. So really practical nuts and bolts conversation about office hours. Give yourself permission to lock doors. Give yourself permission to do what you love instead of what you feel you ought to do. And listen, grow that business and grow your homeschool journey because the kingdom of God needs you, friend. Okay? All right, you got this. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of She Considers a Field. If you found value in this episode, I would be so grateful if you would leave a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. And be sure to share with a friend who needs some encouragement on her journey today, too. Until next time, remember, you've got this because He's got you.